when Tucker did his big attack on me with Candace Owens, the big lie that stood out to everybody, maybe the cause for everybody to give me a chance and listen to what I had to say, was this. He called me a lot of names. He said I'm a weird basement dweller, I'm gay, all these different things. He said I'm a bad faith actor, I'm trying to poison the well of the legitimate America First right with a toxic association. He compared me to David Duke. He said a lot of things. And these are all things that have been said about me before. All the different attacks. You've heard them, I've heard them, we've heard them for years. That's not new. And some people called it cowardly and dishonorable. Some people cheered it on, honestly. But the big thing that stuck out from his show last week is something that could not be ignored. It was a brazen and bald-faced lie. This is the central problem. And maybe the central thing that he said, which again was cause for people to give me some consideration and watch the show last week. He said with Candace, and I'm about to play the clip for you just now. He said with Candace that he did not know that his father was involved in the CIA until his father died. And his father died in March of 2025, earlier this year. Not only did he say that he did not know his father was involved with the CIA, he said he was actually shocked. He was shocked and surprised that he found out very late in his life. His father was appointed by Ronald Reagan in the late 1980s to work for the U.S. Information Agency, hand in glove with the CIA.
That's so weird, right? Like, do you actually believe Tucker Carlson never knew about this, that his dad was working for the CIA? I highly doubt that he never knew about this. He for sure knew that his dad was working for the CIA, if you ask me. But I'm very curious about your opinion. Do you think Tucker knew this or not? Share your opinion in the comments.
And they were behind such things as the CIA covert backing of the Contras in Nicaragua. They were behind the propaganda surrounding Tiananmen Square in China in 1989. So his father was involved in some serious stuff. And Tucker says that he did not know, again, until just about a few months ago that his dad was involved in the CIA. Well, everybody really had the same thought, which is, I think I've heard Tucker say, though, in the past, that he knew his father was in the CIA. And it didn't take long for people to find the evidence. And so last week on Friday, we found the clip from last year. Tucker Carlson did a show with Sean Ryan, another former CIA officer. This was in June of last year. And Tucker said at that time, I knew my dad was in CIA. I knew he was in that world. And so everybody said, wait a minute, irrespective of my favorability towards Tucker or my antipathy towards Nick Fuentes, they said something's not right here. That's a bald-faced lie. You got caught. Last year he said he knew. This year he says he was surprised, shocked to find this information out in March. So which is it? Something is not right here. Something is out of place. And what's more, the logical next question is, why would he lie? Why would he lie in such a brazen way about something like this?
Because Tucker Carlson is controlled opposition and he's just a liar, if you ask me. Seriously, like, and I'm not trying to defend Nick or anything. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I like the things actually Tucker Carlson says. Sometimes I like the things Nick said, so I'm not trying to defend one of them. But Tucker Carlson is just acting so weird, like, especially lately, like since he left Fox News, he's like acting kind of strange. I feel like someone bought him, a country bought him, if you understand what I mean. But yeah, I mean, like, they will show the evidence now, but like it is a fact in my opinion that Tucker Carlson is like acting so strange like the last years. Like, I don't know why, or maybe I know, but I can't say it here.
This isn't your usual white lie. If Tucker himself applied for CIA, if his father was CIA royalty in broadcasting, and Tucker's an international broadcaster, this does raise legitimate questions. And if Tucker is not being forthcoming about this, but is instead lying or obfuscating or concealing, it invites an investigation. It says, what else are you lying about? If you lied that you didn't know your dad was CIA, are you lying that you are CIA or the extent of your cooperation with CIA? That was a natural question. But we did more digging over the course of the last week, and we found about half a dozen other clips that Tucker knew and said publicly that his father was involved in the CIA. So I'll play this compilation for you right now, and we're going to react to it. This is the first clip. It's about 2 minutes, and I'll play this right now. All of this has come to light over the course of the past week, and this is a big reason why I did this show. So here it is.
And he's attacking my dad as a CIA, his dad's in the CIA or whatever. And I'm like, well, that's no, untrue. Then my father dies, and I learn, actually, yeah, was involved in that world. I was completely shocked by it. So no one has to believe me, but that's just a fact.
Right.
This was in March of this year. And so when I applied to CIA, and I've taken a lot of crap, including from Putin, like, oh, you're from a CIA family. Well, yeah, obviously my father worked in conjunction with CIA. I mean, that's what that is. And I tried to join the CIA.
He had a bunch of them. He ran the Voice of America for a long time, maybe 5 or 6 years. He was an ambassador in Africa, and then he ran something called the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
I mean, the guy who took out Mossadegh lived on my street. One of the Roosevelt CIA officer. So, I mean, again, I grew up around this stuff, but
that's why it's not happening.
But they seem to be doing so many other things. I mean, I applied to CIA. My dad worked with CIA. I was never against CIA. I thought only like dumb liberals were against CIA, and traitors or whatever. So my views on CIA have evolved based on things that I have seen and personally experienced.
You took a pretty well publicized trip with your father. Was it about 1.5 years ago? How long has it been?
Since we were in Pakistan.
Down to Nicaragua for the summer and work and, get involved in the war, and support the side that we thought was right.
Where you got left behind for a couple days.
Oh, no, that was when I went to Vietnam with John McCain. Yeah, I had a hassle at the airport.
And are you still traveling with your father on trips?
We spent the summer in Nicaragua trying to get a sense of the war there, and all kinds of hilarity ensued. But yourself, my father's a great guy to travel with, and very amusing and adventurous person who's up for anything. So I said, let's go to Pakistan. Okay.
And we have the internet to expose the lies. If this isn't 20 years ago when you were on CNN, and we couldn't expose things, we can expose it now, and they still do it.
Well, I guess I would ask myself, I lie. If I'm really cornered or something, I lie. I try never to lie on TV. I just don't, I don't like lying. I certainly do it, out of weakness or whatever.
Okay. So that's 2.5 minutes almost of Tucker Carlson over the course of 20 years talking about and getting caught at least in 2, maybe 3 explicit instances saying, my dad was in the CIA.
Exactly. For real, how can you still believe this man? He's literally it's just lies after lies after lies. For real, Tucker Carlson is just one big joke, if you ask me. This clip just shows it all. Even Tucker wanted to work for the CIA himself. He literally just said this. So he will probably defend his dad. And of course, I understand. But he just defended his dad, the CIA and everything. And this is exactly the reason why I don't trust Tucker Carlson at all. And I feel like he's controlled opposition. Because he's not he is not saying the things he actually wants to say. But he has an agenda, if you ask me. And I'm curious what Nick has to say about this, but I'm also very curious about your opinion. Do you think Tucker Carlson works for the CIA? I don't know.
We lived down the street from the CIA officer that overthrew Mossadegh in Iran in 1953. I went to Vietnam with John McCain. I traveled to Pakistan with my father. I traveled to Nicaragua with my friends at the behest of my father. All these different clips paint a very interesting picture. 25 years. Going back to 1999, Tucker is saying, I was traveling internationally with my dad who was in this world, that Voice of America. And if you pay attention, he says in the Sean Ryan interview, he said, my dad ran Voice of America. That's what that is, the CIA. 2001, 2002, he says, my dad's at Voice of America. He's an ambassador from Seychelles, which is a major hub of the super mob, if you know anything about Seychelles. It's an island off the coast of Africa. And so I saw this compilation of clips and I said, something's not right. This is clearly a deep mystery here. Obviously, I was onto something on my show last week. Then another clip came to light, a second clip, if you will, or a second theme. If these are a compilation of clips, there was another major clip that caught my attention. We watched it on Monday. I was going to do this show on Monday, but I had to do a little more research. And in this clip, the second clip that I want to play for you, Tucker Carlson attacks Patrick Buchanan. Now, for those that don't know, Patrick Buchanan was an advisor to the Republican presidents Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan in the 70s and in the 1980s. He became one of the most popular conservatives in America. He was a very famous commentator, pundit. He was on very popular talk shows. In 1990, he was in the middle of a major scandal because of his opposition to the war in Iraq. George H.W. Bush, former head of the CIA, vice president under Ronald Reagan, member of the Skull and Bones Society at Yale, George H.W. Bush took us to war in Iraq in 1990. Many people believe at the behest of the Israelis. This was after the neocon ascendancy of the 1970s and 1980s, which we'll get into. George H.W. Bush takes us to war against Israel's archenemy, Iraq. Patrick Buchanan, who was, again, a very famous columnist and pundit at the time, he ran afoul of many of the Jewish neocons and the conservative movement at large at the time. He said the only people that want a war in Iraq are the Israelis and their amen corner in Washington, who will agree with them on anything. For this, he was called an anti-Semite. He was canceled. He was banished from the conservative movement. He ran unsuccessfully for the presidency in 1992, 1996, and then again in 2000. Now, Patrick Buchanan was America First before America First. The title of this show. Patrick Buchanan was against the first war in Iraq before there were opponents of the second war in Iraq or opponents of the war in Iran.
Patrick Buchanan was a based guy. Like, for real, exactly what Nick just said. I wish we had people like him today that would be like the best for our country, like for real. But as well, like, isn't it weird that everyone who is like criticizing Israel is called like an anti-Semitic or anti-Semite like the whole time? That's so strange, right? Like, you can have like an opinion about almost every country in the world. That's no problem. But once you say just one thing about Israel, you are like almost like censored. You are like called an anti-Semite. Like, they block you or they kick you out of the Conservative Party. Isn't that kind of weird if you only do this with one country? Because you can talk about almost every country in the world without a problem. You can say whatever you want. But if you say just like a little thing about like Israel, they will ban you for life almost everywhere. It's kind of weird, right? This double standard. Maybe it shows you a little bit like who has the power.
The situation in the 1990s, you could argue, was in many ways identical to what's happening in the conservative movement today. You had constituent elements of the conservative movement that were very skeptical of foreign intervention, very skeptical of going to war, particularly in the Middle East. At the same time, there were other factions inside the conservative movement that sought to cancel those people, who called them isolationists, anti-Semites, and undertook actions to get those people fired from their jobs, suppressed, get their careers destroyed, so that they could continue to advocate for wars in the Middle East that benefit Israel. Patrick Buchanan emerged as probably the leader of that former category of conservatives, of the social conservatives, the remnant of the old right in America that said after the end of the Cold War, why are we racing into the Middle East to fight another war for Israel? And for that, he was attacked. Now, this was a seminal moment because in many ways it prefigured the current arrangement. Just as it was then, so it is now. You have many constituent elements of the right wing that for one reason or another are coming out against the war in Syria, the war in Iran, calling for withdrawal from Iraq. And just as it was then, you have another element inside the right wing that is suppressing them, canceling them, trying to brand them as anti-Semites and isolationists. And just as it was then, you have a figure that has emerged, or a number of figures. I count myself among them. Perhaps you could say Tucker Carlson is one too, who are speaking out against the wars and against the neocons, this faction in the conservative movement that are pushing those wars. But 25 years ago, Tucker Carlson took a very aggressive line towards Pat Buchanan, the leader of America First in the 1990s. When all of the neocons, when others were attacking him, Tucker Carlson joined that chorus and called Pat Buchanan an anti-Semite and a nut. And his attack against Buchanan then is almost identical to his attack against me last week. I'll play that clip for you now. As I said, it's about 3 minutes, so bear with me. But it's important to watch the whole thing from start to finish.
Before we watch this clip, isn't it kind of like suspicious that Tucker Carlson is like exactly what Nick just said? First he was attacking him, now he's attacking Nick. And it's all because of the same reason, because they criticize Israel. They have America first opinions. They don't want to have like wars, or they don't want America to be busy with wars all over the world in favor of other countries. Like, I don't understand that Tucker Carlson like is disagreeing with this, or that he is like attacking them for this opinion. I thought Tucker Carlson was also America first. I thought Tucker Carlson would support this idea. But actually he doesn't, because Nick just explained. He is literally attacking Nick for the same reason, because Nick says some things about like, I probably don't even have to explain you, but it's kind of weird, right? That Tucker Carlson is like, he says he is America first, he is like super conservative, but his actions doesn't show that he is, or some of his actions. Anyway, let's see this clip, because I think it's very interesting, so let's go.
And this is part of the sad thing about Pat Buchanan, as far as I'm concerned. And just to restate, I mean, Pat does raise issues that I think are important. I mean, I think that, the sovereignty of the American military, et cetera, I mean, these are not just crank issues. But unfortunately, Pat Buchanan raises them in a way that I think is discredited. And when attacked, he can always fall back on the line, well, the tiny cabal that controls American politics doesn't like me because I speak truth to power. This is actually, incidentally, almost verbatim what he said the other day, that I offend the plutocracy, that I'm a wanted man by the inside the Beltway people, and in every sense cast himself as a victim who is sort of a Karen Silkwood of politics, someone who's so truthful that he's being hunted down by the conspiracy that runs Washington. I mean, it's all a bit much. Maybe Pat Buchanan just says things that are kind of kooky, and that's why he's being criticized. It's perfectly valid to question America's relationship with Israel. Israel has a lobby. It's perfectly fair, as far as I'm concerned, to beat up on Israel's lobby. But I don't think that's the reason that Buchanan is being labeled an anti-Semite. It's this kind of, as I've said, this relentless bringing up topics related to Judaism. I mean, famously, Pat, always beats up on Goldman Sachs, but never Morgan Stanley. I mean, it's really hard to. There is no point at which Pat Buchanan has held a press conference and said, I really don't like the Jews. I think they're a sinister force in America. But I think, and it took me years to come to this position. I mean, I'm not throwing the term anti-Semite around. But you reach a point when you say, well, gee, here's a guy who has gone out of his way to defend Demjanjuk and other accused Nazi war criminals, who's constantly attacked Israel, who's attacked American Jews for supporting Israel unduly, who's implied that American Jews push America into wars in which non-Jews die. There really is, and again, I'm not hysterical on this subject, but I do believe that there is a pattern with Pat Buchanan of needling the Jews. Is that anti-Semitic? Yeah. I mean, after a while, you conclude it is, in some sense, anti-Semitic. I mean, Pat Buchanan obviously has a lot of personal and affectionate relationships with people who are Jewish. So on a personal level, perhaps he's not, but on a different, maybe thematic level, I think he probably is. I think that people should be allowed to have differing views on immigration. I think people should be allowed to point out the fact that there is an Israeli lobby, and yes, it's powerful, and debate the merits of that, I guess. I don't think there's, strictly speaking, anything wrong with that. But again, I think Pat Buchanan is part of the reason it's so hard to have that conversation, because he discredits it by his presence, because he gives people who watch him carefully the sense that he has another agenda that has to do with personal dislike, and that he believes in conspiracies, and that he believes that the Jews are this sinister, secretly organized force trying to affect American politics. And those aren't discussions I think normal people, sober people, should be having, because I think they're ludicrous.
Okay, so that's the clip. We're done with the clips for now, so I'm going to come back to our main screen here. So the basis of his attack against Patrick Buchanan is that Buchanan is an anti-Semite. And let's flesh this out a little bit. Let's tease this out somewhat. So Tucker says, because it's a very subtle and nuanced and specific thing that Tucker is saying. Tucker says that Pat Buchanan is kooky, is hateful. He's crazy. He's an anti-Semite. And because he's an anti-Semite, he's hurting legitimate political actors. How does Tucker Carlson create that distinction? What is the essence of that distinction between these so-called legitimate critics of the Israel lobby? Because if you notice, Tucker says it is okay to attack the Israel lobby. It is okay to talk about the sovereignty of our military. And sovereignty of the military means who is sending Americans to die in wars? Is it a foreign lobby or is it actually the will of the American people? He said, so those are legitimate conversations to have. You can criticize the lobby. You can argue whether we're going to war at the behest of Israel or not. He said, and that's legitimate. That's a legitimate conversation that we can and should have. He said, but Pat Buchanan is different. He said, Pat Buchanan is kooky and crazy, and he is an anti-Semite.
But why? He didn't give one argument. So it's very easy to say, oh, this guy's anti-Semite. But he's not even giving like one argument. And Tucker does this the same today, as we speak today. He did exactly the same with Nick Fuentes. He also like called out on Nick for like criticizing Israel. And he just said that it's okay to criticize Israel, criticize the Israel lobby. That's all fine. But when people do this, then he calls them an anti-Semite. Like why? He just said you can call out or like you can debate like the Israel lobby, the power they have, it's fine. But when people do this, then he is gonna call out those people. That's kind of weird, right? That you say you support something, and when these people do this, then you're gonna like try to censor them, try to like make fun of them, try to tell them that they are anti-Semite and that they are crazy. That doesn't support like your ideas you said before, that you support this if they do this. Because once they do this, you're gonna hate on them. This is so weird in my opinion, if you ask me. Like, what the F?
Why? What is the difference? Tucker says it is the insinuation that Jewish Americans support Israel because they are Jewish. That is the essence of the distinction. And in a sense, Tucker is acting as a gatekeeper. That is effectively a description of a gatekeeper. When Tucker is telling his audience, this is what you are allowed to talk about, and this is what you are not allowed to talk about, that is what he said. He said, these are the conversations you can and should have, and these are the conversations that sober-minded people should not be having. He is, in effect, by definition, a gatekeeper because he controls the gate of acceptable discourse. What is tolerable, what is acceptable on television, in print, who can be employed and have a job influencing the minds of Americans, and who should not, who should be fired from their positions at various newspapers and opinion magazines, who should be fired from television, who should be listened to, who should have any credibility. Tucker is acting as a gatekeeper, controlling the gate of acceptable discourse, what is legitimate and what is crazy and hateful. And the basis of that distinction as the gatekeeper, again, is Pat says it has to do with Judaism. He is relentlessly talking about Judaism, and it is the Jewishness of the neocons which colors their bias in favor of Israel. Now, I want to read to you, this is an article from Ron Unz.
Exactly, spot on. And exactly for this reason, I believe Tucker Carlson is controlled opposition, and you should be a little bit careful about the things he says. You should really think about it before you believe anything he just says. Anyway, I'm very curious about your opinion. Do you agree with Nick? Do you disagree with Nick? Please share your opinion in the comments. I'm very curious. If you like this video, please hit the like button. If you really like this video, consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. And last but not least, guys, I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.